Hi, my name is Taylor Gardner, and for my final project, I chose to talk about welding. Welding is a fabrication process that fuses materials by melting two parts together. I chose this topic because I'm currently pursuing a degree in welding at COD, and I've seen firsthand how gender and power are present in the welding industry and how it affects the welding industry as a whole. In this project, I'm analyzing welding through a sociological lens, with a focus on androcentrism in the welding industry. Androcentrism is when traits labeled masculine are valued more than traits labeled feminine. Welding is a perfect example of this, so I'll be using the androcentrism diagram throughout this presentation. Even though welding is an extremely diverse trade with hundreds of different industries using the technology, there will almost always be these same six main status levels in welding. These are the shop or company owner, project supervisor, the foreman, the welder, the apprentice, and the helper or laborer. These are all positions people occupy in the welding industry. If we rank these statuses by power, meaning who has most decision-making power over employees, it usually goes in this order: shop or company owner, then the project managers or supervisors, the foreman, then the welders, the apprentices, and last is the helpers or laborers. The owner and supervisors have the most control, and the helpers and apprentices have the least. Each status in welding has a different role and different behavior expected to go with it. Owners are expected to make major decisions and hire or fire employees, while sometimes hiring is also done by the supervisors. Supervisors assign work and enforce standards, as well as do some of the owner's work, but usually just those two. Foremen give welders and other employees directions and aim to maintain or improve productivity. Welders do the skilled labor of welding and meet production goals. Apprentices learn how to weld, prep materials for the welders, and assist them in whatever they need. Helpers move materials, do physical labor, and clean the shop. These roles affect how people interact in the shop and what the power structure is like in the shop. Now we're going to break down gender in welding. Welding is extremely gendered. 94% of welders are men, and only 6% are women, though there are more women welders entering the trade. Most of the time, anything above a welder is a man, though sometimes this is different. Women are more likely to be employed in office positions or less labor-intensive types of welding, like TIG welding and MIG welding, which are mostly done indoors and require very little heavy lifting and is a much cleaner form of welding. Let's take a closer look at how work is gendered in welding. If you map out gendered work in welding, it'll usually look like this. Tasks done by men are mostly stick welding, pipeline welding, rig welding, structural welding, and more dangerous and dirty types of welding. The kinds of welding done by women most commonly are TIG welding, MIG welding, light fabrication, and other cleaner and less labor-intensive forms of welding. This shows how welding divides labor along gender lines. There are many examples of doing gender in welding. Men often show the trait of physical toughness. In my experience, many male welders, including me, will casually talk about burns, joke about how many times we caught on fire, and talk about how we keep welding even if we're getting burned because you have to tough it out and you got to finish the weld. Many women in welding sometimes feel pressured to prove that they belong by working harder, lifting more, and acting less feminine, usually in an effort to keep up with or prove themselves to their male coworkers. Many female welders, despite undoing gender by being a welder, still try and do gender. Many of them try and do the trait of physical attractiveness by having painted nails, having long hair, and wearing women's versions of standard welding products like pink welding hoods and other women's products. In welding, men are positively sanctioned for being physically tough and strong, while women are negatively sanctioned for the same behavior. This connects to androcentrism because welding heavily values traits like strength, toughness, and dominance, labeled masculine, and devalues traits labeled feminine, like emotional intelligence or sensitivity. Dueling gender in welding is tied to power. When masculine traits are rewarded, men get access to more opportunities, higher paying roles, and more leadership positions, while women face more negative sanctions, more scrutiny, and fewer job opportunities. So small everyday interactions like jokes, assumptions, or who works certain jobs reinforce bigger power structures in the welding industry. So overall, welding isn't just a trade. It's a social system shaped by gender, power, and cultural expectations. Understanding that helps us see how androcentrism works in welding and how it affects people differently. Thank you, and have a great day.